video here on some of the new features that the render calculator has now, as well as the how the render calculator works in general, just for those who haven't seen the video already. So I'll start off by talking about the new features, and if you already know how to use it, then you can quit from there, and I'll just be going over how to use it for those who haven't seen the video. So first things first, I will say, if you haven't watched the video on how to run and install any of my scripts or tools that I make, I would watch that first, which you can find that at the top of my website on the Techie Stuff. If you're on my website, you go to Techie Stuff Scripts, and right there is a button that will take you to the video on how to do that. So watch that and then come back here and you will be up to speed, because I won't be covering that in this video, so just keep that in mind. But kind of moving right into some of the new features of the render calculator, you'll see, I think you can see there in the old version, this is the old video here, you can see, this was kind of out of place, just off here by itself. This was kind of over here by itself, and then these were kind of out here in the middle doing nothing. And then you have these random text fields, or I'm sorry, text objects that are telling you how the current setting works, but they're just kind of sitting there and they're not very clean. It's just very sloppy and all over the place. So I've taken some time to kind of clean it up and make it a little bit more appealing to look at. So, but first things first, you can see already there's a new color scheme going on that kind of fits my website there. Kind of keeping that teal and dark bluish gray kind of look. Just makes it a little bit not as default like when you're, some of these Maya windows, how they're just gray and the buttons are gray and everything's gray. So it's a little bit nice. Even the window itself is a different color now, so it may not look like it, but it's got a little bit of a blue hint to it, so it's nice. But one of the things that I have gone in and kind of taken the time to do also is add annotations to everything, so that it's really easy if you forget how something works. Even though it's all pretty self-explanatory, it's just kind of nice to have there. But as far as the settings go, there's still only 2 settings. They're both the same, but there's that. And then one of my favorite new things is this button here. Instead, before, where those text objects were kind of just sitting there, even after I'd cleaned it up a little bit, they were just kind of sitting out there and kind of broke up the flow of the interface. So I went in and made just a button that brings up a window. Has the same information, just kind of brings up a nice window that you can close out once you're done, and it's not just sitting there in the middle. And of course that changes based on what setting you're on, and even the name of the window changes based on what setting you're on, which is kind of cool, I think. Just a little tidbit there. But besides that, the only other new feature really is that the frames section automatically loads whatever frames you have in this box here, which is just what your time slider is set to. So I kind of found that pretty awesome. That way, if I just close this out and I set this to 5,000 or 512, we'll say, and then I load my calculator, it's going to automatically put that number in there for you. So just a nice little feature. Eventually I will look at getting these to do a similar thing based on your test renders. When you render anything and it gives you that number at the bottom, I want it to be able to take this number from your, maybe even average some of your previous renders. So that'll be something I look into later. But besides that, that's pretty much all the new features. So if you have seen how to use this already, this is where you can go ahead and cut out and go download it and use the new version. But if you don't know how to use this, this is where I'll be covering how to actually use the render calculator. So getting right into that, it's pretty simple. There's 2 settings you're going to be choosing from. The first one, if you look here in this window, is the type of input you'll be putting in is how long your renders are taking on average. So when I pulled up that window, this number right here is kind of when it gives you your time that your render took, that's what you're going to be putting in there. So from your test renders, if I'm rendering a scene with a teapot, the generic teapot, and the render is supposed to take 15 seconds per se, you'll put 15 in the seconds input, and then you'll have your frames already loaded. Or if you want to have a new number, if you want to have 550 frames, you'll put that, and then the kind of output you'll get is the total estimated render time. So it will give you how long that calculation is, just pretty much a multiplication, and then it just displays it in a little bit cleaner fashion, so you don't get, if you were to do this with a regular calculator and just do 15 seconds times 550, you would get the amount of seconds that it would take. But that's not very intuitive. So I don't know what 8,250 seconds is, so I'd have to go in and divide it by 60, and that would give me the amount of minutes, and then I have to go in and divide it by 60 again, so I would end up getting 2.29, which is pretty much obviously what that is there. This just kind of gives it to you in a little bit more visual terms, so you can know what that's going to be. But one thing to keep in mind, this is not 100% accurate. That's why I put estimated in big letters there. The output you'll get is just based on the math you put in here, or the numbers you put in here. So it's not going to calculate for your final gather and different scene orientation and stuff. So this is just a rough estimate for you to be able to see. But if you want this to work to your advantage, one of the things you can do is go ahead and put in one of your longer render times. So if you have an animated camera going around a scene with your teapot, and you have one shot where it's really close to the teapot and one that's really far away, if the one that's really far away is taking, let's say, 15 seconds, and the one that's really close takes 1 minute and 30 seconds, I would go ahead and take maybe the average of those two, or the average of those two kind of closer towards the longer. So if the one's taking 15 seconds and the other one's taking 1 minute and 30 seconds, I would go ahead and stick to somewhere around 1 minute with my calculation numbers, just because that way, once it does the math, it's going to come out a lot longer. But if it ends up finishing a lot sooner than that, you'll be better off than it finishing a lot longer than 2 hours. So that's something to keep in mind. Just always give yourself a little bit more extra time when dealing with that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But other than that, that is pretty much how you use that setting. And then kind of moving on to the other setting, what's nice is it kind of clears all those fields for you. But the other setting, the average time setting, works kind of in reverse of that. So if you only have a certain amount of time, and we'll bring that up here, the amount of time you have to render. So if you know you have 12 hours to render and you have 550 frames, this will kind of tell you how long each of those renders need to take for you to finish on time. It's kind of a nice visual way to see, obviously you're not going to get all of your renders to take 1 minute and 18 seconds, but it's kind of a nice visual way for you to see kind of roundabouts where your renders need to be. And it's the same thing with the first setting. This isn't 100% accurate. You're gonna, this is gonna be real ballpark estimate. I would go ahead and do the exact same thing. If you want this to work to your advantage, go ahead and put a smaller number. So if you have 12 hours, or let's say you have 1 day until your project is due, go ahead and put in maybe 22 hours instead. Don't put in a full day calculated for it to render, because it may take longer, or it may render shorter. So give yourself less time to render, just a little bit. You don't have to go crazy, but that way you'll see that it gets you to 2 minutes and 24 seconds, rather than if I put a day in here and went ahead and did that, it would give you 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Doesn't seem like a lot, but after 150 frames, that adds up a lot. So That's another thing to keep in mind. But that's pretty much it for as far as how it works. Just two different settings. They both kind of work in reverse depending on what you need. Don't fully rely on them 100% because they will not be 100% right all of the time, especially with longer projects. Like some projects with dynamics can sometimes come out to be 4,000 frames, and probably, I had one time that was about 4,000 frames, so they were only took about 6 seconds. But you'll see if I tape 6 seconds in here with 4,000 frames, it comes out to be, let's see, actually total time, we'll do 6 seconds, only 6 seconds, but 4,000 frames comes out to be 7 hours. So even the slightest up and down 1 extra second will give you a whole extra hour of rendering. So just keep that in mind. It's really cumulative, so that's one thing to never let slip from the back of your mind. But that's pretty much it. The only other thing I would say is that isn't exactly apparent is that if you are dealing with seconds, or say you want to put in a minute here, each field here goes up to a certain limit before it'll let you even type it in. So the seconds and minutes area will only let you really go up to 59 before it won't let you type in 60, because technically 60 seconds is 1 minute. So same thing with the minutes is 59. You can type in 59, but 60 it will not let you. And hours is 23, but 24 it won't let you. But days is the only one that is uncapped. You can type in however much you want, but I never saw a real need to cap that because I don't see anybody having a render that is taking days and days to render, and if you are, you're probably not going to be using this. So but those are things to keep in mind. I hope you guys enjoy using it. If you have any questions, or you just want to tell me how accurate it is to your render times, go ahead and shoot me an email, or just comment on the video. But I hope you guys enjoy, and thanks for watching.